Welcome to the American Small Business League podcast. I am Bruce DeTorres, and with me is Ernest Lineberger, running for the House in 2026 in Texas in the 26th District. Ernest is a U.S. Navy veteran, and he is focusing on making government work for the people and military veterans and also for economic balance. He has 15 years distinguished service as a Navy officer and then 27 years with Texas Instruments, focusing on efficiency and the capacity of the semiconductor manufacturing with a deep understanding of technology and innovation. And Ernest, it's a real pleasure to be with you today. How are you?
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, it's good to be here. It's a beautiful day in Texas. We had I don't know, 4/100ths of an inch of rain yesterday, so we're enjoying that. Uh, there's a lot going on. As you know, we're fighting the redistricting battle, where they want to take a lot of our Texas congressional districts and reshape and resize them to cut the urban parts down and add more rural parts. And typically that means more Republican votes per district, making it harder for a Democrat to run, win, or hold a seat in the U.S. Congress. Now, that's been true for a long time. My district, Congressional District 26, has been Republican. I'm beginning to lose the number of years. I think 42 now. I think we had two different congressmen. One held it for 18 years and one for 22. And the Dr. Michael Burgess was the latter of those two. And he decided to resign or retire after his term last year. And so there were 11 Republicans that ran for that seat, and there were no Democrats that were going to run for it. When I went to vote in 2022, we had just been redistricted. My district was 24, the district that elected Beth Van Dyne. And but with the 2021 census, we got redistricted to 26. And when I went to vote in 22, there was no Democrat on the ballot at all. So you could vote for the Republican or the Libertarian. And so in 2023, I went to find out what Democrats were thinking of voting. Who could I encourage and support and get behind and push? And there was nobody. There was nobody thinking about it or anything. And part of that was due to the gerrymandering and the long history of a Republican-held seat. It had just kind of grown Republican, and it's just hard to unseat. Well, I was, like you said, a retired naval officer and working at Texas Instruments and getting close to retiring from that and not sure what I might do next. I thought, well, my time is available. So I jumped in the race in late 2023 and put a strong year into it. And come the November election in 2024, I got 138,000 votes. It was pretty encouraging. It certainly wasn't enough to win. My opponent got a little more than 100,000 more votes than that. So that indicates, sort of justifies why a lot of Democrats aren't eager to get into this race. It's a fresh punch in the nose every time, and it's something you just don't want to spend a lot of time and money on. But I figured after the end of 2024, I could quit and see if somebody else who didn't really know what they were doing came up behind me to start over, or I could say that's a good starting off point for 2026. I did get 138,000 votes. I just need maybe to flip 50,000 or to bring in 100,000 new votes. And there is so much going on that I think is distasteful to a lot of Texans that I said in a speech the other day that Representative Gill and myself are showing people that I am the better candidate. I did get endorsed by the Dallas Morning News and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, one of them saying that of all the people in the race, they thought I would be the only one who would make a good representative. I did get endorsed by the Texas AFL-CIO. And so I'm for the people. That's the first thing I'm going to look at with any bill is who does this serve? Does this serve the people? Does it serve the nation? Or is there some special interests like billionaires, for example, huge business? Is it male centric? Is it, what's going on here? Is it really serving the people, or is there some small special interest involved? I was very much enjoyed the email I got from the American Small Business League, and they were telling me about women-owned businesses and what percentage of our economy that is and how much is at stake. And yet government business provides only a very, very little part of that business. And I think that more could be done to fix that, and probably other playing field disadvantages in the small business world. And one of my thoughts is, if we work harder to support the base of our pyramid, the people at the lower economic levels, if it seems that there's a lot of evidence that when you put money into those levels, that money jumps right back into the economy. Actually, at the end of COVID, it actually showed how big of a force that is. The money that was put in at the lower levels of the economy to try to help people pay their rent, who had not been able to maintain a job because the jobs went away, and et cetera. The other money that went to the lower levels that jumped right into buying things people need, whether it's groceries, whether it's rent, whether it's transportation or services, that money goes right back into the economy, and it overwhelmed what we were ready for. And that's why we got so much inflation. If we could do this a little more gradually, stop doing things in huge snaps, like that brings up SNAP, that DOGE and the current Congress are taking money away from people in need, and that's going to hurt small business. Grocery stores are probably going to see. Right now, we depend a lot on donations, and that's great. I donate to Christian Community Action, CCA. I may have got that wrong, but CCA here in Louisville, and the United Way. I'm a board member for SPAN, Meals on Wheels of Denton County. I am positive on the community stepping up to help those at the lower economic levels. But I think if we adjusted our economy, we wouldn't need to do that so much, and we could put our forces on the things that do not go away. There are charities for medical requirements. Meals on Wheels supports a lot of aging needs of the aging. And these are things that won't go away just because the economy's better. So I am a retired naval officer. I was specialized in nuclear power on surface ships. I spent tours on multiple warships, including the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz. Those were adventures and exciting times of my life, and I was very happy to be able to do it. I meet people and they say, "Thank you for your service." And I'm like, "Thank you for the opportunity to serve." Yes, there were, long periods of time away from home and hours where your diligence and attention to detail was required. A lot required of a person to do that. But it was a great job and a big adventure, and I enjoyed every minute of it. After retirement, I actually tried to start a couple small businesses. One was going to be a small entertainment thing where people could come have birthday parties, but also play on some of the different setups that would be there inside, maybe a closed big box store or something. Turned out I didn't have the money to get that started, so tried something else. And I tried to start a medical billing business, and that was pretty exciting. I talked to some physicians and they said, well, yes, that's a definite need. So I quickly got some computer set up and got some software and some training. And I went out to go sign some contracts. And it seemed like everybody had just signed contracts with some other organization or another of medical group. So I need a job, and I was lucky to get hired by Texas Instruments. So that brought me to Texas. I started as a night shift supervisor, managing a small group of about 8 or 10 people working in the factory. And over the years, I ended up being an industrial engineer, calculating the capacity of the factory, working with managers and vice presidents to make sure we were doing all we could do to keep high paying jobs in a critical industry here in America. And that time is over for me now. I'm running for Congress and trying to see what we can do to put government back in the hands of the people and establish better relationships with our foreign partners and allies. I really hated with the war, Russia's aggression against Ukraine, and we were supporting them. And the money that we had allocated was running out, and our Congress sat on their hands and did not allocate money for like 8 months. It did force some other countries to step up and some other avenues to go about helping Ukraine, but it made us look like idiots and people that don't stand by our partnerships. I don't think that's what Americans want to be thought of as. I think we want to be trustworthy partners in every endeavor we start. There's more I could go on with that, but those were some of my real feelings as to why we needed a strong person in Congress. And
Absolutely.
when there wasn't one, I felt it had to be me.
Well, there's so much value in everything you described in no order of importance. To run as a Democrat, just to give the district an option and a choice is immensely valuable. It's a creative opportunity for you to run in a district that has been so Republican for so long. You have to thread the needle with whatever you would espouse. You know that it's got to appeal to those who have that historic tendency, but you also know smart and logical positions and proposals will win people over. And we're going to bring it right into the world of the American Small Business League. Your district, I will bet, is like the country in America. 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses. Many people don't know that. The advertisements and the stories are about Fortune 500 companies. They are about companies run by billionaires. Many people can be forgiven for thinking that's the majority of companies in America. No, even more specifically, 98% of all businesses in America have less than 100 employees. So as we wrote you to talk about the federal contracts that go to women-owned small businesses and to small businesses in general, let me get our audience up to speed with what we told you, or what we wanted to talk about, is the fact that women are half the population. They own 40% of all businesses. Many people don't imagine that. But they get less than 5% of federal contract dollars. Companies owned by men get over 95% of all federal contract dollars. And women's companies employ, I've got the figure right here, over 12 million workers. Their companies generate 2.7 trillion in revenue. They span all major industries. They're increasing representation in finance, insurance, real estate, transportation, warehousing. In other words, they sell what the government buys, but just because of habit and entrenched interests. But worse, it's the influence and of the big businesses who get the vast majority of federal contracts. The small businesses in general, by law, are supposed to get 23% of all federal contract dollars. Well, we have a project called Don't Cheat Women, and people can learn about it at don'tcheatwomen.com. And what we want you to consider as a candidate, Ernest, you're not going to do it in one email, you're not going to do it in one conversation with me, but we want you to get fascinated with the idea and our arguments why the amount going to women should be raised from 5% to 15%, an extra 10%. That would push from 23% to 33% the contracts that are supposed to go to small businesses in general. And that raises a huge opportunity and a huge challenge. The challenge first is the fact that every year, the SBA, Small Business Administration, responsible for monitoring all this, declares success and says, we met the 23% goal, we exceeded it, but for 30 years, we have won over 100 legal battles, the American Small Business League, showing that small business contracts worth billions every year go to the country's biggest companies. And so have multiple congressional investigations and many reports from the SBA's own Office of Inspector General. People can go to our site, asbl.com, learn all about it. Meaning, if a legitimate small business is 100 employees or less, 97% of all federal contract dollars are going to big businesses, which are 0.1% of all the businesses in America. And when, let's say, 33% of those contracts actually went to our small businesses, Ernest, that represents about $264 billion of an infusion of business, 33% of the $800 billion that the federal government is projected to procure this year in goods and services through contracts. Okay? $264 billion, if it actually went to our small businesses, which are small, would have to create 3.3 million jobs to do that work. Because in 2010, the Senate Small Business Committee chair said for every 1% increase in contracts to small businesses, 100,000 jobs get created. So 33% going to small businesses is 3.3 million jobs created on top of the 2 million jobs that America typically creates every year. In other words, this would be an economic boom of epic proportions. No new taxes, no new spending, debt-free, deficit neutral, exactly the intention of the 1953 Small Business Act, which created the Small Business Administration and said a fair portion of federal contract dollars has to go to small businesses. And over the last 70 years, that's become codified as 23%. So we want to raise the amount going to women from 5% to 15%. We want to make official the definition of a small business as 100 employees or less, not the government's current definition of a small business being up to 500 employees. And the various agencies, for all kinds of reasons, some agencies say this 1,000 employee business is a small business to fulfill our obligation toward that law. And even this 2,000 employee company is a small business for purposes of these contracts. It's a mess and a scandal of epic proportions. And that's what we are reaching out to candidates like you saying, hey, listen, you want to unify left and right, Republican and Democrat, and you want to excite your district, bring to them more succinctly than maybe I just laid it out, these realities, and get behind the candidate who says, yeah, I want economic fairness for women. I'll end with this, which is which is as important as everything I just mentioned to you. Without that kind of economic equality, women don't have political equality because men earn and save more than women. They contribute more to campaigns and to politicians. They have more influence with office holders. It's easier for them to run for office. And in the Senate and in the House and in all state legislatures, 75% of those positions are held by men. We've always had a male president. 75%, I think it's about 68 or 70% of governors are men, and up to 90% of committee chair positions and also party leadership positions are all men. So because they don't have the same economic wealth, women are not participating in politics as equals. It's 2025. And all this can be remedied by simply raising the amount of federal contract dollars that are supposed to go to women-owned small businesses, and then monitoring the SBA and making sure they prove that small business contracts went to small businesses. Ernest, that's what your new friend Bruce and your new friend the American Small Business League is at your disposal between now, August 2025, your entire career, to double check that, get comfortable with that, and road test it as you campaign and just see, is this something your district cares about? Is this something that would push you into the House? We hope it would.
Absolutely. Let me add, my district is in North Texas, part of the DFW Metroplex, which is huge. And there are major companies around here, whatever you want to think of. I worked for Texas Instruments. That's a large company. There's Raytheon. There's all kinds of other semiconductor factories. There's aircraft manufacturers. There's, you name it. There's a lot of stuff here, even financial businesses. However, my district, Congressional District 26, is north of DFW. It is north and west of Dallas and north and east of Fort Worth. And our largest employer is Louisville Independent School District. It is 100% small business. Now, the definition of 100 or less, I haven't checked that, but there is no number one major employer or anything like that. It's so much of it is rural. A lot of our population, of course, is suburban and semi-urban, I guess, but a lot of it is rural. And so there's a lot of farming. And one thing that really bothers me, I've actually gone to adjusting my diet to be gluten-free and dairy-free for other reasons. But I have met people who have said they can't eat the American food, but unless they go overseas, they can eat anything. Otherwise, when they're here in America, they have to really watch their diet. And part of that is our food generation has become huge business, and people are doing it one way or their way or something. And maybe that's not best for everyone. When we have small farms and smaller food manufacturers or smaller companies of all types, I think we get a lot of variety and a lot of opportunity to learn to do things better than the gross, huge, big business farming systems. I think government's job is to support all those rural activities. Water is a huge interest in our community. We need to make sure we have the water to support these farms. And if only the big companies can afford to bring in the water, then that's a problem. We need to support all the smaller farms. I'm actually a member of what's called kiva.org, which is international. It's in US as well, but it's a micro loan company. And there's people that, they just need something small to help improve their business and make it larger. Maybe they need to hire an employee. Maybe they need to buy a truck. Maybe they need to finally go brick and mortar or something. And they can get a small micro loan. And people like me help fund those loans. It's not a lot of money out of my pocket because it's a group thing. I'll put in a little bit and so will 300 other people or something. And bada bing, they've got a free loan and they're able to expand their business. But small business, that Kiva part is sort of fun for me. That's not maybe huge in CD26, but I do know that small business is big.
Right. And obviously because you wrote back something encouraging that led to my inviting you to do the podcast, we're reaching out to about 1,000 declared candidates for the House and Senate next year. with the same facts and figures. And anyone who replies back and says, "Tell me more, this is amazing," or "Right on, you're right on the money," I look them over and then I invite them to do a show like this, Ernest. And I just want to ask you, because I before I met Lloyd Chapman, who founded the American Small Business League a couple of years ago online for my old podcast, I didn't know that the SBA was basically falsifying compliance with the target of 23%. That's controversial. If anyone searches that, they're gonna find, oh, everything's fine. What Bruce is saying isn't true. You have to, go to ASBL.com. Had you heard anything like that in all your experience before we reached out to you, or before I explained it just now?
Um, Not so much that, more the incompetence of businesses, like when they were trying to restore power to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, that they were hiring businesses with little history or infrastructure to go do some huge major job. That was the kind of business story that I was mainly hearing.
From the
So,
about the SBA?
no, this was about contracts being, so more on
Right.
government contracts being awarded on
Sure,
the
sure,
on
yeah.
maybe the favorite son system rather
Right,
than
whichever agency was in
deserved.
charge of finding contracts for that work, it was obviously a little corrupt there, a little shady to say the least.
Yeah, so corruption just really needs to be weeded out. And was so disheartened by the Doge effort. And the first thing they did was eliminate the inspector generals, you know, cutting off the eyes and ears of what's going on. And that is just wrong. And there is so much we need to reverse and rebuild. Uh, I'm a veteran, and one of the things that always catches my ear is support to veterans. And it
Hmm.
seems like almost every administration goes and finds something horrible about supporting veterans. And I don't know why we can't get our logistical arms around that and fix it once and for all, provide enough medical care and coverage. And although small business has not been under my microscope, it's clear to me after visiting with you that it has to be, that it'll do so much for fixing our tax base. If you support the small business, that will cause a better boom, better taxes. We have a $36 trillion debt that is not going to go away until we balance the budget. And just
Yeah,
doing some of the things we say we are going to do
yeah,
will already help that. So it needs to
yeah.
be uh, a priority.
I'm an amateur historian of American history and politics. Is this your first office you're running for?
Well, no, I was senior class president in high school.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But people ask me,
Right.
why on earth, since this is your first serious public office, why would you run for Congress? And why wouldn't you like run for city council or school board or something and get your feet wet that way? The answer is this was the need.
Hmm.
It's like, why do you do anything? That's the need. Why do businesses open? To
Yeah.
serve a need that they see. And with no one else running in this district, this is what I had to do.
Yeah. And I want to reflect on my impression of you from your website, Ernest, and also everything you've shared here. Your website is linebergerforuscongress.com, and folks will find your story in narrative form along the lines of what you've shared with us here, and something, and the impressive account of what you did, and also how you very plainly spell out your values and your pursuit of integrity and your pursuit of the highest quality service is really, really compelling, as much as a website can be, or one conversation with a human being. So I want to really steer people there. um, I'm satisfied with the length of this show that we just captured, but is there any other point you'd like to make, or anything you'd like to ask?
I appreciate you, Bruce, and your organization and bringing this to my attention. Uh, I do appreciate you as a good newfound friend. And I think I'll be, I was checking out that website. Remind me the name of it about uh, don't something
Yeah,
women's.
don't cheat women.com without the apostrophe.
Yes, yes, and I, I I'm fired up for this topic. I think it's important, and it's not
And
because hey, this is going to help me win. It's like this is important. This is going to help America and Americans, and that is the point for my running for Congress, my candidacy. That's the whole point.
amen. The whole revelation that our small businesses are not getting the small business contracts that they're supposed to get. I refer people to the American Small Business League site, ASBL.com. The Don't Cheat Women site will refer you there too. It also has substantiation. We're doing a better job getting the substantiation organized. At the bottom of the email that I originally sent you has really good initial proof of our claims so that someone new to it like you can just say, this is a reality going back decades that you will not hear about on the mainstream news. You just won't. But we intend to start a movement, a la the civil rights movement, to just say, can we get some truth for small businesses? Can we just get the law truthfully implemented, even if it stayed at 23%? If it went to 33% like we want, it literally would change everything economically. We would have so much more prosperity and room to breathe and be much more proud of ourselves just as citizens. And that's what self government requires, right?
Does ASBL work with local chambers of commerce or anything else locally?
We are reaching out to create relationships simply to spread this word, but no, not functionally the way your what your question means. No,
Okay,
right. But
great.
we are on a rampage to on a campaign to get the word out there to influential people like candidates for Congress and Senate, you know.
Yes. Well, I hope you are a very busy man and you get a lot of positive replies from a lot of good candidates. There's so much that needs to be done. I know my opponent who won the seat did very little to campaign.
Mm,
He basically uh, inherited the seat and he did very little. And we don't need someone who's going to do very little or just simply ride the coattails of someone in higher office. We need
right.
somebody who's going to look out for the average person, the small business owner, the middle class, and help America truly succeed instead of be the victim of some authoritarian regime.
Right. Or the victim of just the momentum of business as usual, where the contracting officers in the various federal agencies have their relationships with the 0.1% of companies that are enormous companies. And just as a heads up to expose that, it's to think about the Pentagon because of the huge share of the federal procurement budget that the Defense Department gobbles up. They've got those relationships secure with the giant corporations, and that's just a heads up for everybody to know. You know, President Eisenhower was really on the money when he gave his farewell address and warned us about the military industrial complex. And that opens up a whole future field of conversation with you, my friend, veteran in the Navy for 15 years.
Yeah.
So to be
I tell my
continued.
friends who like to play games, what's the most fun part of Monopoly? And I guarantee you, it's not at the end where there's one guy wiping everybody else out. And that's where we are today in the economy. We've got that top 1% or less than 1% that is just running the board, wiping everybody else out. And we're afraid to land on one of the railroads or something. So we want people to have a more enjoyable life, a better life, just a lot more fair playing field.
Amen. And that's why it's absolutely urgent for someone like you who sees things that way to throw your hat in the ring and say, I don't care if it's against the odds or a slower path to go through school boards and city councils. Congress needs honest people who want to clean things up and turn things around most urgently.
Absolutely.
Ernest, a real pleasure. I really want to thank you very much for your time and your willingness to do this with me.
Thank you, Bruce. You made it awesome. Appreciate your time.
I appreciate that. So hang around. I'm going to, after I hit stop the recording, quick questions for you, but I want to thank you and thank everybody for watching and listening today.